from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program, and our phone number if you want to join us, 866-505-4626, 866-50-JIMBO is the classic number. You're always welcome to give us a call on the Legacy line. Welcome to the Friday edition of the program, and big stories, right? We got a couple of big stories. I'm flying blind here. I can't hear my folks in the studio at all, so if I get cut off going to the commercial, it's because I have zero ability to hear in my ear. But we've got a story that I want to go over, and the story that I want to go over is Fani Willis. You got Fani Willis, who you know her better on this program as Funny Willis, right? Funny Willis. And good old Funny Willis, she is now admitting, she's saying, well, you know, I actually did have a personal relationship with the prosecutor, but that's not a conflict of interest that I hired my boyfriend to go after Trump, even though he's never done criminal prosecutions. And Fox News has this story, and I'll give you a little bit of an update on that in a bit. There's also the news that she's been subpoenaed by the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, having issued a subpoena to get her testimony to see what's going on. So we're going to get into that in a second. But Funny Willis, as I like to call her, she was out there today, and there was some audio on that. And if you bear with me, I'm going to tell you which clip I want. I think it's cut number 16, where ABC News correspondent Aaron Katersky is reporting on it. Listen to this.
Tonight, after weeks of mounting questions, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis acknowledging a romantic relationship with a special prosecutor she hired to lead her case against Donald Trump. But in a new court filing, Willis insists her relationship with that prosecutor, Nathan Wade, does not amount to a disqualifying conflict of interest requiring her to recuse herself. Trump and two of his co-defendants have accused Willis of improperly benefiting from hiring Wade, who has been paid $650,000 over 2 years. In church last month, Willis suggested Wade was only under scrutiny because he's black.
I appointed 3 special counsel, as is my right to do, paid them all the same hourly rate. They only attacked one.
But at the time, Willis did not acknowledge their romance. Today she did. Her court filing included an affidavit from Wade confirming they developed a personal relationship in 2022 after he was hired. Trump and his 2 co-defendants claim Willis benefited from the money her office paid Wade, saying he had taken her on lavish vacations. But today, Wade insisting the district attorney received no funds or personal financial gain from my position as special prosecutor.
So this is what's going on with Funny Willis. Obviously, she's saying that she's done nothing wrong. She's going on to say that she and Mr. Wade have been professional associates and friends since 2019, but there was no personal relationship between her and Mr. Wade in November of 2021 at the time of Mr. Wade's appointment, and that Mr. Wade didn't offer any what's the word here, insistence that he or she pursue any prosecutorial discretion on this particular case. So we'll see how this ends up. To me, it looks like it's not good for her and definitely undermines the case, right? Because whether you're guilty or not, when they start throwing mud like this, it's typically your job to say, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm going to step aside for the sake of, justice to be done here, for the sake of this case to move forward, blah, blah, blah. I don't think she's doing that because she seems to be doubling down. And at least as of now, she's doubling down. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know what's going to happen with her. But it seems like she's becoming defensive. And listen, I can become defensive just like anybody else. But I'm learning in life, becoming defensive is not a great response. Just isn't. Sometimes we feel the need to defend ourselves or to set the record straight or to, correct a wrong or whatever. But ultimately, to the outsider looking in, I think you lose. And I think Funny Willis is going to lose here. I really do. I think not that she's going to lose the case, which I do think she's going to lose, but more so I think she's losing any public support she may have had, right? So you've got the state of Georgia that's now the Senate, the state Senate, is investigating her. Not a good look for her. Now you have the media scrutinizing what's going on. Also, not a good look for her. And on top of that, you've got the House Judiciary Committee in Washington looking into this, and I'll get into that in a second. But this filing that's been that we're referring to here about Mr. Wade's appointment, it also says that attacks on Special Prosecutor Wade's qualifications are factually inaccurate, unsupported, and malicious. This is what she's filed. In addition to providing no basis whatsoever to dismiss the indictment or disqualify him. Now, we had Doug Burns on, I think, last Friday for right at the top of the hour. And he was telling us that he doesn't think that whatever she's done here that's wrong would get the case against Trump thrown out, irrespective of the Trump team saying they want that outcome. I don't know that Doug's right or wrong, but his analysis is usually pretty spot on. And what they're saying here is that same thing, basically. They're saying, look, whatever you think about us, they're refuting that they did anything wrong, Funny Willis and her boyfriend. But they're saying that this won't dismiss the indictment or disqualify Mr. Wade. And that's an interesting one. I would think that they should get rid of Mr. Wade, and they should also get rid of Funny Willis and put somebody that is more, palatable to the Georgia public. But we'll see how that goes. They go on in this filing that they've put out. The truth is that Wade has long distinguished himself as an exceptionally talented litigator with significant trial experience, Willis said in Wade's defense. He is a diligent and relentless advocate known for his candor with the court and a leader that's more than capable of managing the complexity of this case. District Attorney Willis has made no public statements that warrant disqualification or judicial inquiry, and she's criticizing this whole process. So we'll see how that whole thing works out. I think Funny Willis is hurting herself and her case, but we'll see how it goes. Again, honestly, I think this is a win for Trump through and through, and that she doesn't win, and that she eventually gets removed or recused or whatever the case is, but that she's no longer in the driver's seat here, along with her boyfriend. Now, straight ahead, I want to get to a bunch of things this Friday night, so I'm glad to be with you. One of the things I want to talk about is we keep seeing different polls coming out where Trump is gaining support with Hispanics, and a bunch of polls that are also showing a similar trend with Biden losing support with Latino voters. And I want to know, why are the Latinos leaving Joe Biden? What is going on? Why does that seem to be a trend? Now, listen, I know it well, but I'm wondering what the latest reasoning is. So for that, I want to bring in a buddy of mine. He's a former gang member, got into a gunfight, and is now in a wheelchair. He's given his life to the Lord. He works in ministry and in political activism, and he's started a phenomenal organization called the LEXIT movement. It's a movement of Latinos exiting the left, exiting the Democrat Party, and that's why it's called LEXIT, and he's coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So the jury's out. It seems that we continue to see more and more Hispanic voters leave the support of the Democrat Party, to leave the support of Joe Biden. And I think the question for many becomes why. Now, we can easily answer that right? We can say, well, it makes all the sense in the world. Hispanics are just fed up like everybody else about inflation. They're fed up just like everybody else on these unnecessary military interventions that we've been involved in. They're upset like everybody else on a number of issues, right? Inflation being among them, the border being among them. These are big deals to everybody. And that's why we have so many minority voters that are saying, you know what, I don't want anything to do with Biden. I'm done. I'm through. But there's more, right? There's more to it, because when you really press the flesh and you speak to people, you find out, well, you know what, there's a lot more to it. People are taking this stuff personally because it's affecting their families. And it just is increasingly evident. I mean, look at this. This one's coming out of Texas, right? This is in the Houston Chronicle. Just a quick headline here. Texas Latinos prefer Trump over Biden in presidential election. University of Houston poll finds, right? This is today. Likely Latino voters in Texas prefer Donald Trump over President Joe Biden in an expected rematch this November as they, go head to head. And this is according to University of Houston survey that was released earlier this week, right? Let's see here. 40% of the state's Latino voters support Trump. 47% of the state's Latino voters prefer Biden. Excuse me. 41% support Biden, and 47% support Trump. So that's an interesting matchup with Trump up by 6. I read that the wrong way. And that's according to the University of Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs. And we keep seeing polls like this from all different places, right? It's just over and over and over again. Seems to be the trend. So I want to bring in a friend of the program, a friend of mine. He's the founder of an amazing group of concerned conservative Christians that are walking away from the Democrat Party. They're leaving the left, and they call themselves LEXIT, Latinos exiting the Democrat Party. His name is Jesse Holguin. Jesse, welcome back, sir.
How you doing, my brother?
God bless you, man. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, brother. It's been a while.
Yeah. So I know you've been out there. You've been busy. I've seen you at a number of events doing the amazing work that you do. What's the main thing that you're hearing right now when you're out on the front lines doing the activism that you do from Hispanics, from minorities, when they're saying, I'm done. I'm not messing with the Democrats anymore? What's the number one reason?
There's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of things. So you can't really pinpoint just one thing, but it's a lot of things. Like especially over here on the West Coast, big thing was the parents are pissed off because they're grooming the kids at schools. They're pushing all that stuff at the kids at school. So we've been battling that a lot over here. And Latinos, we're not so. Then they're trying to do child mutilation, and like you said, the crime, because it's bad in New York too, but the crime, all that inflation, all of that stuff. So people are just fed up because, like, you pick any issue, basically, you can just pick any issue. Democrats are doing terrible on it. Biden's doing terrible, and you can pick the issue, and they're doing terrible across the board. So people are just fed up with it, and now their eyes are open because, see, they got bamboozled, a lot of Latinos. They got manipulated, bamboozled, however you want to call it, because, see, they tricked the minorities, especially the blacks and Latinos, but they can focus on everything on racism, race, or the past, and indigenous colonizers, all that gibberish. That's what they've been manipulating the minorities on, especially Latinos. And before they say, Trump racist, Republican racist, everything is white nationalist and all. That's what they do all the time, right? So they got a lot of these minorities, so they voted for them. But now a lot of them are getting egg in their faces, and they're like, now they're going to the gas station, putting gas. Now they're going to the grocery store, buying groceries. They're seeing all the crime. They're seeing they're grooming their kids at school. They're seeing all of that. So they're like, whoa, they got egg on their face, and now they're waking up. So they're like, whoa. Now they're starting to wake up because of all of that stuff.
Yeah, listen, I totally get it. And I think we hear the same things on the East Coast as you guys are hearing on the West Coast. And it's inspiring to see how many, Latino moms and dads are involved in this issue against expanding the role of gender, right? Making it incredibly fluid for a lot of people. And I know that's a big issue in California schools, probably even bigger than it is in New York and New Jersey. And
well, they even made it here that they were trying to make it where they could even take your child from you at 12 years old, and the parents are totally against that. But go ahead.
No, well, that was what I wanted to ask you was how are parents responding to a lot of this big push? Because I think those are the only states in the nation, right? I think it's California, followed by New Jersey, that are both entertaining this law that says if you don't accept your kid's transition, and you don't have to approve it either, but if you don't accept it, the school has a right to use the state's child welfare powers to take your kid away.
Totally insanity, the parental rights. Like, when we went to school, they only taught math, English, science, whatever. Just stay on the subject. We don't need you to talk to our kids about sex and all this other gibberish and putting all this stuff in their head. They never did that when we were in school. Never, ever. Like, why are you guys doing that? We don't need your opinion. We send our kids to school, just teach them the basics and all that, and that's it. But they're indoctrinating the kids, like we always say, because they can't reproduce, so they recruit, and that's why they're grooming kids. We've been having rallies all across, and then at the school board meetings, parents have been voicing their concerns, and it's been like a big thing over here. But parents are afraid because, especially Latinos, we love our families and Latino mothers and that with their children. You don't mess with the kids. So that's like the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of Latinos. Once they seen them doing that to their kids, they're like, whoa, and then they see like the drag shows for kids, they having little kids there. And just like all of that, people are like, even if they're not involved in politics or they don't really care either way, they don't like that. They're like, whoa, I'm not even really into politics and all that, but I don't like they're trying to do that to the kids in school. Like Latinos, we don't like that at all, the Latinos. So, but there's a bunch of other reasons too. Like I said, it could be the inflation, the borders, even the borders. Because imagine even right here, I live in LA, in the heart of LA, and right down my street and all, there's a bunch of illegals, right? And even they don't like the open border situation. But a lot of them, they've been here for like over 10 years, 20 years, working here a long time. They've been here a long time or whatever, but they don't even like open border. They don't even like what's going on at the border. Nobody does. It's like totally insanity. I even just read today that they're trying to give them free cards, prepaid credit cards to illegals now. Did you see that?
With $2,200 on them. Jesse, hang on right there. Folks, we're on with Jesse Holguin. We're going to hear a little bit more about his story and what he's up to, and we're going to get his take on the border and more when we come back. Don't go anywhere. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez.
Is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We're hearing a change when it comes to immigration in general from President Biden on down. To hear her talk about that, it is also directly related to the fact that these were police officers. Does that have any impact? Does that change anything?
Well, it's so complicated because, you're a New Yorker. You move through the city every day as I do. We see these people, we touch these people. They're out looking for work. They're delivering our food. They're at the gas stations and the car wash. These are people who came in waves, 170,000 probably to New York City. But within that group, this hardworking, throngs of people in search of hope and a better life, there is this 1%er, criminal element that looks at a different opportunity here. These individuals, I went over their rap sheets yesterday, multiple charges, grand larceny, robbery, attempted robbery, grand larceny, grand larceny. This particular crew operated on mopeds and scooters. They were doing organized retail theft. They were doing snatches on the street, iPhones, iPads, clothing, so on and so forth. One of them that they are still seeking has 10 charges on one day because he's part of a pattern that's been going on. And I'm looking at the dates that their arrest started, which is probably close to when they got here. They've only been here a couple of months. So what the detectives are telling me is they have crews here that operate in New York, do all their stealing, then go to Florida to spend the money and then come back. And I'm like, well, why don't they just stay and steal in Florida? And they said, because there you go to jail.
Oh. Great point.
So there you go. You've got, that's John Miller. He's the CNN chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. And the anchors were stunned to silence saying, oh, at the end, because he basically told them that these people have come here, that while there's many people that come here with good intentions, that there are criminals coming into this country. There are people coming into this country to terrorize the country. And you know who else said that? Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States, Donald J. Trump, right? He said that, and everybody said, oh, no, because you're a bad guy. You're a bad guy. Listen to this.
You have the right to close up your border. You don't need bills that complicate it and make it to a level that nobody's going to be able to do it. And the minimum was 5,000 people a day, if that can be right. It's hard to believe that can be right, but they were negotiating to allow 5,000 people a day. That's a tremendous amount. Nobody wants to have that happen to our country, and they're still not going to know where they're coming from. Right now, we have no idea who these people are that are pouring into our countries. Last night, I watched where they're beating up police officers in New York City, a gang of people that just came in that didn't speak English. Nobody knows who they are, where they come from. And very importantly, they come from, I can tell you, they come from jails and prisons. They come from mental institutions and insane asylums. And they're terrorists. They have a lot of terrorists coming, too. And we don't want them, I'm sorry, So we had a very strong border.
Jesse Holguin, you heard the analysis from CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller, leaving the anchors stunned to silence, right? They couldn't say anything except, when they realized that there are actually criminal crews coming across the border to take advantage. And these people came and had a rap sheet, and they've only been here for months. And when you hear that, and it literally is backing up everything that President Trump has been saying, how do you think that rings across to the rest of the world?
It's good because everybody is starting to know that Democrats equals lawlessness. That's what it is wherever they're at. Like we know that in New York and over here in California, people are just walking in stores, walking out with merchandise like nothing because they're weak on crime. They're releasing, like a lot of the prisons over here in California are shutting down. They're releasing all prisoners. They're just it's insanity what's going on. And then the people, like let's say if they have he's only a 15-year-old boy coming across the border. No, a 15-year-old boy over there is not the same as a 15-year. You don't think of him as like a 15-year-old boy from over here. A 15-year-old boy coming from one of those countries over there is totally different from a 15-year-old kid over here, from the way they grew up and all their ways.
By the time they're 7 or 8 years old, they're running around with gangs, right? And you know something about gangs, right?
Exactly.
You were in the gang life. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was like the main leader for my gang also. Yeah, I did years in youth authority and in prison for shooting. So I wasn't just in the jail for whatever. I was in there for doing shootings, gang-related shootings, and all of that. So I know, but that's
Jesse,
how I know.
Before you go on, I want everybody to know because they can't see you. It's radio. But you're in a wheelchair today because of result of a shooting.
Yeah, paralyzed. I got shot and paralyzed from a gang activity. Yeah. So I know first that, and that who supplies all the gangs is all the drugs, all the fentanyl, and all that coming across the border. That's what supplies the gangs.
So when you see this happening, and again, as somebody who's been there, right? Most people listening to this have not been in a gang, right? And have not been shot at or shot people in gang fights like you have. But most people listening to this want to believe the best in people. And I think this is why when people hear Trump say something like, these are people coming from prisons, these are people that are gang-related, whatever the case is, they're saying they're bad hombres, right? It's difficult for some people to believe because people genuinely want to believe the best in people. But when you have experience with that, you know that that's not always the case, right?
Yeah, well, that's all they want to say. That's all they want to say is, oh, poor them, and oh, they just want to make a good life. Oh, they always say that. You notice that? But you never hear them say, oh, let's about the poor homeless, or the poor children that are getting sex trafficked, or oh, the poor women getting raped, or oh, the poor people dying from fentanyl. It's never that. It's always, oh, poor illegal. They want a better life. It's always sympathy for them. But not all the American veterans on the streets out there poor, or Americans that can't pay their bills. It's never that. It's always, oh, for the league. That's how they manipulate. See, they're very good at manipulating. Like I said, that's how they've been manipulating minorities for so long. And they'll tell us racism and the past and all of that. That's what they do. Because, see, we have that. Like, look, they just assaulting these police officers. They're getting people don't like them getting the free insurance, free housing, all these things. So how do they combat that? How do the Democrats combat it? So it's how they combat it. They're, oh, poor people. Oh, we feel bad for them. Oh, they just want to do good. That's how they combat what we're doing, because we're showing them, look what they're doing. Look at getting all this, and they're doing this. They're stealing, all these bad people, and we need to secure our borders. And they combat it by saying, oh, look at poor them and the women. And it's just, that's why I said they'll even try to say, oh, 15-year-old boy. Like, no, a 15-year-old boy coming from over there is not the same as a 15-year-old who grew up over here. They're totally hard. They had a hard life, and they're maybe like a 25-year-old over here.
How do you think illegal immigration is impacting voters in your area of Los Angeles?
It's bad because people are seeing it. Because, like I said, they're taking our jobs. Like, not all of them, but some taking some jobs. Even when you go to the hospitals now, they're overcrowded. The schools are overcrowded. So imagine your kids. They kind of shutting down football programs and all the different things because they're being over. You see them all over the streets, and over here it's bad homeless problem. So now it's even more worse. They're like, wow, there's so many homeless and all that, and you guys are having. What's the reason why that they would want these illegals? Because we already know we're working them up. That's the next thing on their game plan. They want to bring in all these illegals, and then the next thing on their agenda, they're going to say, so they should be able to vote. And then they're going to come out with their go-to, your racism. If you're against illegals voting, racism, and that's their playbook. We already know that. That's why they want all these illegals to come in, and then they're going to try to later say for them to vote, and then that's to replace all these minorities and all of us that are leaving the Democrat, all of us Americans that are waking up. They're trying to replace all those voters with all these illegals.
Yeah, Jesse Holguin is the founder of the LEXIT movement, former gang member who now works in ministry and political activism in Los Angeles and throughout the country. The movement is called the LEXIT movement. It stands for Latinos Exiting the Left, Exiting the Democrat Party. And Jesse Holguin, when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on this big human trafficking bust that happened this week in Los Angeles. 500 people arrested and dozens rescued as a result of this human trafficking sting. I want to get your take on that and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Is a statewide task force made up of dozens of law enforcement agencies who went after these guys, and they netted more than 500 arrests. North of 500 arrests were made statewide by a task force made up of more than 90 law enforcement agencies in California. The LA Regional Human Trafficking Task Force made the announcement earlier today of the arrests at a news conference at the Hall of Justice. LA County Sheriff Robert Luda not only talks about the arrests, but the number of victims that were saved in their 2024 operation that happened last week.
54 adults were rescued. 11 children were rescued. 40 suspected traffickers and exploiters were arrested. 271 sex buyers were also arrested. In total, there were 539 criminal arrests made during this week-long operation.
All right, that's a report by Sid Garcia, ABC 7 News, discussing the 500 people that were arrested for trafficking-related charges by Sheriff Robert Luna and their operation to arrest these folks. I forget the name of it. I just saw it, and it's drawn a blank on my mind. But I'm always happy to see.
I'm over here, and I haven't even seen it.
Oh, really? You haven't seen it? Yeah, it just happened, I think, on Tuesday was when I saw the news, and they just had that press conference. And it's about time, I think, that we see arrests that, usually it's like, 10 arrested, 12 arrested, 20 arrested. This was 500 people that were arrested. And I think it's a good thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, and it just goes to show. Remember when that Sound of Freedom movie came out, and they were trying to talk about it. They were saying, conspiracy theorists,
yeah, that's right.
Totally against it. They were trying to bash the movie because it's like we were nuts and all QAnon and all that. And we're like, what? That's real. But we all knew, especially us Latinos, we all know, and that's true in our countries. We know that's common in our country, so they didn't fool all of us.
Jesse Holguin, as you bring up a really good point, and that movie, by the way, The Sound of Freedom, is on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you could watch it for free. But the point of that movie was really interesting, and I do remember a lot of people pushing back, and some large magazines were taking exception to the idea of the movie, saying that it was conspiracy theory pushed by QAnon followers, and it's really messed up that, I guess, our critics on the left would trivialize child trafficking and child exploitation just for their own political benefit.
Yeah, that's disgusting. That shows you what evil disgustingness that we're up against to do that. Like you said, imagine that. Who would be against pedophiles and human trafficking, raping, and that of children? Shouldn't that be something that we should all be in agreement with and like that? How are you guys attacking when then that's a true story too? They even have the video proof, like everything's a true story. How could you guys be attacking that like that? It's totally shows you, like I said, how evil that, because we all know that Hollywood, a bunch of pedophiles, like all of that, it's all the same thing in one.
Yeah,
because I think if they're gonna, one day that's gonna be their leftist agenda. They're gonna one day push pedophilia.
Well, it's funny. I've had a number of guests on this program who've thought that is part of the agenda on the left. That there are some radicals on the left that said, we're going to hijack this movement and we're not going to make it about being an alternative to the conservative movement, but really an agenda that's pushing the idea of lowering the age of accountability for a lot of things, in particular, so that what they call intergenerational sex, or what's the other term that they use? Oh, geez, I'm forgetting it. It'll come to me. But it's a term that they've been using to, instead of pedophilia, they call it minor attracted person. That's it, MAP. They call it a minor attracted person. I mean, I think that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
If I would have told my dad, God rest his soul, he's not around, but if I would have told my dad, if he would have said one of these, weirdo pedophiles, and I would have said, no, that's a minor attracted person, Dad, I think he would have lost it.
Gosh, it shows you about what sick, evil days we're in. But even like I said, even the gall for them to even come out attacking that movie, and like that shows how bad it is now. They think that they have free reign, like I said. Okay, even at the drag shows and that, like, why do they want kids there? Like, okay, for one, I wouldn't even want a woman stripping. I wouldn't want a woman stripping in front of little children. I would even want that, right? Let alone some man. But then you ask yourself, what kind of a man wants to dress half naked in front of children? What kind of man is that?
Right. And what's interesting is, again, like I go back to many people are very well-intentioned. They don't see the bad in things. So when you take somebody who just wants to live a good life, that wants to just be a peaceful, kind person, and they hear, oh, they're having drag queen story hour with the kindergarten kids at the library, they're thinking, oh, how nice. I don't want my kid to be a bigot, and I've heard that if you don't like drag queens, you're a bigot. So then maybe I should bring my kid to the library so they could do the drag queen story hour, and we could all have fun with the drag queens, because ultimately we want our children to be kind. Ultimately, we want our children to be accepting of other people. We want, right? And people start to think these things. And again, there's nothing wrong with these thoughts in so much as really asking, why is it that they want to be around your children? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Jesse Holguin, stick around. We're going to wrap up when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We're going to hear from John Ondrasik. You know him from the band Five for Fighting. We're going to talk about the debut of his latest song. That's coming up in the next hour. But right now, we're wrapping up with our brother Jesse Holguin. Jesse Holguin's a former gang member that got caught up in a gunfight, ended up paralyzed, and now is serving in ministry and doing political activism. He's the founder of a group called the LEXIT movement. And Jesse Holguin, let everybody know how they could follow the work that you're doing.
On Instagram, on LEXIT Movement, or then on Twitter, LEXIT Movement, and pretty much everywhere. And our website is wearelexit.com. But mostly on all social media platforms, it's LEXIT Movement.
You're doing outstanding work out there, Jesse Holguin. If I was ever in a bar fight, you're the guy I want next to me, brother. You got a lot of heart.
Well, you used to be, yeah.
No, you do. You still do. You're out there and you're doing your thing, and I really appreciate everything you're doing. Folks, give them a follow at LEXIT Movement on all of the social media. And Jesse, Godspeed to you, my friend. Before I let you go, what do you have coming up? What's the next big thing you're working on?
Tomorrow we're going to be at the caravan. There's a bunch of caravans coming from Texas, going to San Diego, and then going to be heading to Arizona to go to the border caravan. So we'll be out there tomorrow in San Diego.
Okay, and you guys are, I guess, doing like ministry work or outreach activism?
Yeah, we do all that too. Right now we're going to be focusing on candidates. Because all the elections coming up.
You're in those regions supporting candidates.
Yeah,
got it.
We're going to be pushing for candidates to get. So we need to get these Democrats out.
Well, that's the nature of the work you're doing. The LEXIT movement, Latinos leaving the Democrat Party, exiting the Democrat Party. Jesse Holguin, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late with us.
Thanks, brother. God bless.
You got it, brother. Godspeed. Folks, we're coming right back with John Ondrasik from the band Five for Fighting. He's going to talk about his recently debuted song. It's themed around what's going on in Israel, so you don't want to miss that. We'll have a clip of that for you as well. And we're going to talk about the importance that music has on the social conversation that we're having globally. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the second hour of the program. It's Friday night. Our phone number, if you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, feel free, 833-4825-337-8334 Valdez. And the big story of the day, of course, the United States has struck multiple targets in Syria. We're going to get to that just after the bottom of the hour. We're also discussing what's going on with Fannie Willis, who I like to call Funny Willis. Funny Willis, and she's up to her funny business as usual. She's now admitted to having a personal relationship with prosecutor Nathan Wade and denying any conflict of interest there. We had a little bit of discussion on that. We'll get into that as well. I also want to talk about the importance that music has on the culture. Music is both a driver of the culture and a barometer of the culture, right? And it's always been that way. I mean, think back to the song, Hotel California, right? It's about some guy doing drugs and OD and all that. And that was what was going on in that era in that place at that time. And music usually tells a story, gives a snapshot. Sometimes there's, an embellishment. But for the most part, it, like I said, both drives the culture, but is also a barometer of the culture. You can really get a sense of what's going on, who's who, and what's what. It reminds me of a time a couple of years ago, I don't know, it might have been 2019, where in Puerto Rico, there was an ongoing battle with the governor. His name was Ricardo Rosselló, and he made some disparaging comments following Hurricane Maria, and it offended a lot of people. And they called for his resignation. And when the biggest genre of music in Puerto Rico is reggaeton, right? Part of the urban genre. And when those guys got involved, the musicians, singers, songwriters, etc., they led this movement. And it informed the culture, and they flooded the streets, and they ultimately got the resignation of the governor. And it just made me think, I wish we could get the resignation of Joe El Baboso Biden, right? How cool would that be? I don't think we would. If we rushed the streets, they'd say it's another January 6th. But my point is that music has an incredible power, and it's truly something that I think is a part of our lives that we don't always realize how important or how powerful it really is. And John Ondrasik, you know him from the group 5 for Fighting. And if you don't remember their big song back in the days, 100 Years, and he wrote a song called Can One Man Save the World? And he spoke about how inspired he was of the Ukrainian people, their courage and determination in the face of the Russian onslaught, and how it gives all of us hope and fortitude for all freedom-loving people. And I think that's right. I think ultimately, like I said this earlier, people want to see the good in other people. They really do, unless they're taught or told to see it otherwise. And that's why I think it's so important for music to continue to inform the culture and to tell the story of the times. And I want to welcome as our guest, John Ondrasik from 5 for Fighting. John, welcome, sir.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me.
You bet, brother. And, we're talking about some of your previous songs. And, in fact, you have a new song that was inspired by the events that occurred on October 7th. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think we all were, horrified about, watching the atrocities on October 7th. I think for many of us, reminded us of 9/11, frankly, reminded us of the disastrous Afghan withdrawal. Some of the images, we just were shocked. But afterwards, I don't think we expected, 2,000 people celebrating the atrocities in New York City the next day. And we continued to see the moral collapse of many of our institutions, certainly the media, obviously college campuses. Rich, I was honored to play the concert for New York after 9/11. Yeah. You'll remember back in the day that they had all the posters of the missing on the 7th Avenue, and you'd walk by and you'd be sad knowing those folks were never coming home. But could you imagine people ripping those posters down? Never. And that's what we're seeing. And then even in the House of Representatives, we have Hamas sympathizers. So that really kind of made me angry. And the theme of the song, "Okay," is the fact that we're not okay. And I think it speaks to the moral collapse of all our institutions. And certainly it's been going on long before October 7th. But I think it was a wake-up call for many of us. And frankly, also, this, you talked about how music can matter and change things for the good. The silence of the music industry after October 7th has been deafening. So that was another reason I felt obligated to write this song.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you did. And folks, again, just as a reminder, we're on with singer and songwriter John Ondrasik. He's 5 for Fighting, and they've had plenty of hits, and you've heard some of their tracks that we just played. And he's got a new song called "Okay," inspired by what happened on October 7th when Hamas brutally attacked Israel. And I'm glad you wrote it. And again, it's important that I think someone like yourself, a Grammy-nominated singer and songwriter, puts out a song like this because it's a topic that has to be addressed, right? And I'm a big hip-hop guy, right? I grew up in New York, and I was born in the late 70s, so hip-hop was the thing when I was growing up, that and freestyle music. And hip-hop originally, whether I agreed with their politics or not, like Public Enemy and whatnot, these were all very political messages. The idea was they were, speaking truth to power in so many ways. And I've always had respect for that, whether I agreed with the message per se or not. I think it's important that you do that, right? Because the minute that we don't do that, we become Cuba, we become Venezuela, we become these despotic countries, or countries that are under despotic regimes where people don't have a voice. So I'm grateful for the work that you're doing. And I want to play a little bit of the new song "Okay" before we go to commercial, and then come back and discuss it a little more. Folks, if you're just tuning in again, this is "Okay." It's an ode to Israel by Grammy-nominated singer and songwriter John Ondrasik from 5 for Fighting.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
John Ondrasik, welcome back. I love the new song. I think it's fantastic. I love that you're taking a stand and you're using your gift, your talent to actually to let everybody know what's going on, because this is a message that's being drowned out. I was looking at some reporting the other day where there was somebody had taken the time to measure the amount of, I guess it was on Instagram or Facebook, but the amount of videos that were being put out for one side versus the other, like pro-Hamas versus pro-Israel. And when they were compared, it was something like 5-1 pro-Hamas. So, I mean, in terms of the information war, Israel's already behind the 8 ball and gaining, people. Hamas is gaining public support, and this is why we even see it in the halls of Congress, like you mentioned earlier. So when people tune in to "Okay," your new song, what can they expect to see in the music video?
Well, before I answer that, I have to let you know, as you're a big hip-hop fan, this morning I had breakfast sitting next to Flavor Flav.
How cool is that?
So I
That's
thought
real
you'd
cool.
appreciate that.
I would love
Flavor
that.
Flav never looked better. The video is, the video is not my opinion. It's just clips and images of what happened, of the kidnappings, of the rapes, the murders, the Hamas atrocities, and it's images of the Harvard, MIT, Penn presidents basically saying, if people do these atrocities, it's only depends on context. And if you cannot condemn evil that is Hamas, then nothing is evil. Rashida Tlaib refusing to condemn the beheading of babies. But it also, the video shows heroes. And some people say it's a pro-Israel video. It's really an anti-evil video. One of the heroes in this video is a Palestinian woman who is condemning Hamas for stealing all the aid. So not is it the fact that we have to support Israel in this battle for good versus evil, because it's really not Israel versus Hamas. It's those who want to destroy civilization, like the UN, and those who want to keep civilization and the values of the West. So I think all of that is illustrated in the video, and I think that's why it's reacting. Israel shared it on their social media the other day. And I think so many Jewish people feel abandoned by everybody and the arts And I think one thing this video is doing is letting them know they are not alone in this. And I think the silent majority supports them. But, Rich, I think if we don't stand up, the first line of the song is, it's a time for choosing. We have to stand up. We have to fight this culture war. We have to fight this war versus good versus evil. I know it sounds dramatic, but our kids, over half our kids, support Hamas over Israel. And that is because of TikTok. It's because of Instagram, what you just said. I asked a friend of my son's the other day, who do you support, Hamas or Israel? And he said, Hamas. I go, why? He goes, because it's mainstream. Because it's mainstream. And that's our fault. That's our fault as artists. That's our fault as colleges. So we have a lot of work to do, but hopefully this song, as you mentioned at the top of this segment, music can transcend. One song can transcend 1,000 speeches. And I saw it with my song Superman after 9/11. Songs can provide solace and raise issues in ways no other medium can.
Yeah, amen to that. Folks, we're on with John Ondrasik. He is a Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter from Five for Fighting. He's got a brand new song called OK. Make sure you check it out on YouTube. Check out the video. It's very powerful. I don't think hearing it only on audio does it the justice that you really got to watch this thing in its entirety. Now, John Ondrasik, when are you taking this on the road? Is this part of your tour schedule? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting these days because I'll certainly play my songs, 100 Years and Superman. But the last, few years, I wrote a song, Blood in My Hands, about the Afghan withdrawal, the debacle that was. As you mentioned, I wrote a song supporting Ukraine. We actually went to Ukraine and performed the song with Ukrainian orchestra. And now this song kind of about October 7th. So it's kind of interesting to see the collections of songs. And not everybody appreciates every song, but as you said, I think it's the obligation of artists to speak their mind. You listen to the music of the 60s, you sense the times. And I've always kind of been an old school guy. And we're out on the road in April and with the string quartet. We'll be with the rock band over the summer. So it'll be very interesting to see the response to this new song for sure.
And tell us a little bit about your tour schedule. If people want to, check you out, where are you going to be? I remember last summer, Mr. Producer called me and said, hey, you want to go to Atlantic City? John Ondrasik is playing. I said, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go. The scheduling didn't work out. So if you're back in town anywhere in the East Coast, we're definitely we're gonna crash your party.
Oh, anytime. Yeah, we'll be kind of in the Midwest in early April with the string quartet. Few East Coast dates. We'll be on the West Coast at the end of April. This summer we'll certainly be out with the rock band all over the place. All the dates are on fiveforfighting.com. It's a family show. Bring the kids, bring the grandparents, and I think we have something for everyone. And of course, Rich, you and Mr. Producer are always on the guest list, and we'd love to have you at the show this year.
Oh, that's really kind. I'm definitely pulling that string because I want to do it. And let everybody know where they can go to reserve tickets or take a look at the tour schedule.
Yeah, everything's on fiveforfighting.com. I just do want to let folks know that all the proceeds from this new song are going to nonprofits that combat anti-Semitism. So folks sharing the song on Instagram, Five for Fighting Music, on Twitter, John Ondrasik, Facebook, Five for Fighting. It really takes all of us. And whether you have 10 million followers or 10, we all have a role to play.
Speaking of followers, how do people follow you? What platforms are you on, and what's the handle?
Yeah. John Ondrasik on Twitter, and then Five for Fighting Music on Instagram, Five for Fighting on Facebook. And you can always email me at the website, too. I answer every email. And it's been a big pleasure to be on your show. I'm a fan. I listen to you late at night, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Well, I'm a fan too, and Godspeed to you. Keep up the good work. It takes a lot of courage to deliver a difficult message, and sometimes when you're not popular, right? It's an unpopular message sometimes, and both of us do. And I know sometimes you just got to grin and bear it and deal with the critics. So, stay strong, my brother, and we'll definitely catch up with you over the summer. Folks, that's John Ondrasik. You can get him at Five for Fighting or at John Ondrasik on the social media. Fiveforfighting.com is the website. Make sure you get your tickets to see him if he's in your neck of the woods. John, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you, brother.
You got it. All right, folks, straight ahead, we're going to talk about this big brewing story in the daytime here. We've been getting reports, actually more like evening time, right? Around dusk, we got all the reports about multiple strikes. Joe El Baboso Biden pulled the trigger and went after all the, I don't know what they are yet, but my prediction was that they would be empty buildings or places where, where nobody was going to be because they were all told to leave already. But we're going to get the scoop on that with Colonel Eric Buer, United States Marine Corps, and he served some time in Baghdad. He knows it well. So we're going to talk about the news of the day with him. I want you to make sure you stay tuned for that. Plus, then we got Open Phone America, Friday night Open Phone. We're going to have some good times there as well. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets at 7 facilities utilized by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the militant groups that they sponsor. 3 of the facilities are in Iraq, 4 of them are in Syria. Numerous aircraft, including B-1 bombers dispatched from the United States, were involved in this operation.
All right, that is John Kirby, a retired admiral who is the spokesperson for the National Security Council, and we are discussing the strikes by the United States on the, I don't know what to call them anymore, I guess Iran proxy groups that are, kind of hiding out in Iraq, hiding out in Syria. And today the United States, after a highly announced attack, decided to go ahead and strike these locations. I want to have this conversation with retired Colonel Eric Buer, United States Marine Corps. He's the author of Ghosts of Baghdad, Marine Corps Gunships on the Opening Days of the Iraq War. This is a topic he knows well. Colonel Buer, welcome, sir.
Rich, good evening. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. I really want to tap into your expertise on this issue because, A, you literally wrote the book on it, and B, I'd like your thoughts. I'm just a critic on the sidelines that has a bias towards Joe Biden, and I call him names every day and make fun of him. But I really do believe that he's done a bad job here in announcing that he's going to go get the bad guys and allowing the bad guys to escape and do Lord knows what with whatever, anything that they had. Like, are we really hurting them by blowing up a building where perhaps nobody is? Colonel.
Rich, it's tough. It's a very long and tedious process working through the National Security Council and getting consensus, listening to your advisors, listening to the intelligence reports. There's an emotional response always when we're looking to have a clear military response to the loss of 3 great Americans who were killed in the Tower 22 facility.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. Yeah, we did spend some time telegraphing this. I think it's been very carefully coordinated not to strike any targets inside Iran. You're right, they're their proxies. They're the Islamic resistance in Iraq. It certainly goes after their Quds forces, the Iraqi forces, their special forces. The Iranian forces, special forces. They're operating in Iraq and Syria. It's really going to be a little bit of time to tell how effective a message we've sent. I think this is only the first round. This is all really we call conventional aircraft coming off aircraft carriers, long-range bombers striking these targets. But we'll see in the next day or so the level of effectiveness.
Well, that was a very fair answer, and I could see why you became a colonel. It was a very, very fair answer. But I guess I'm hopeful that we will have struck something of that's noteworthy. I also think, and you tell me what you think on this one. I remember the bad guys saying, I don't know, maybe Monday, saying, hey, by the way, we're not going to bomb anything else because we don't want to embarrass Baghdad. And did you hear that report?
Absolutely. So that's another issue, right? We're in Iraq, 2,500 troops in Iraq, really fighting ISIS at the the will of the Iraqi leadership right now. So it is a balance when you're striking targets inside of their country. This is what the Iranians do the best, right? They're trying to splinter, trying to fracture any relationships they can, and they'll do that. And they've been doing that very effectively, whether it's through, we saw on October 7th, through the proxy war of Hamas. We see it every day with Hezbollah. We see it now with the Houthis in the last several weeks. Those have Iranian special forces on the ground. And we just saw it recently with this attack on Tower 22. Clearly, those folks that made that attack happen don't have the ability to fly advanced drones. They can't, provide the logistic support, the training, the intelligence. And that comes directly from Tehran. And so that is where the problem lays. It lays in the leadership in Tehran. And I think until we really strike at the heart of the issue, which is the Iranian leadership, we're going to continue to have these really, like I said, we're going to see how effective these attacks have been.
Right, and I think that's a fair statement. I guess what I was really getting at is saying if we know that they're saying, look, we're going to ease up on these attacks, right? The bad guys are saying they're easy. They don't want to embarrass Baghdad. Can we even assume that the Biden strike had any effect at all? Because they were already saying that they were going to stop hitting these targets, or am I reading that wrong?
So there's several groups out there. The group that claimed they're going to cease attacks, they certainly are a splinter group. The group that certainly has not said it is the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, and that's the Shia-based organization, clearly supported by the Iranians that carried out the attacks. So I think we'll let them all do is it gave them some time to hide. Right, the Houthis, they shut off all radio transmissions from the sources I've talked to. Radio silent, radar shut down, and giving no easy targets to any attacking platforms that are coming in. The same can be said for Hezbollah. Hamas is in their own piece, and then it gave an opportunity for the folks responsible for Tower 22 to move. Though we certainly tracked them and we hit those 7 targets, it gave them an opportunity to move and gave an opportunity to make that decision cycle, a targeting cycle, even more challenging for us. So to get back to your question, we don't know how effective they're going to be. Even if they're incredibly effective at knocking out proxies, it's not going to stop the root cause. It's not going to stop the fact that we've emboldened the Iranians to continue these attacks. So that is the core of the issue. The crux of the issue is, can we get to the Iranians? Can we force their hand? And that's yet to be seen.
Folks, we are on with Colonel Eric Buer. He is the author of Ghosts of Baghdad. You got to get a couple of copies of this, one for yourself, one to give away. And Colonel, you were a fighter pilot, is that right?
I was an attack helicopter pilot. I was a Marine attack helicopter pilot. Did that for my first career.
I would say it sounds like fun, but it actually sounds pretty dangerous. And I don't envy you, but it does sound kind of cool. I think anybody's up in the air doing the edge of your seat stuff is cool, but obviously very dangerous. Folks, are coming back with Colonel Eric Buer, author of The Ghosts of Baghdad. Straight ahead, don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I have little doubt that the pilots and their crews had a tactical success tonight. I think it's an open question whether this will be a strategic success, by which I would set the standard for whether these attacks on Americans and international shipping stops. I have serious reservations about whether it will be a strategic success for numerous reasons. Just simply put, one example, we let Iran's leaders hightail it back to Iran from Syria and Iraq. So I suspect we did not kill many key Iranian leaders in these regions. Joe Biden also has shown no indication that he's going to reverse his failed Iran policy, really 11 years of failed Obama-Biden Iran policy of trying to appease and conciliate and grant concessions to the Ayatollahs. As far as I know, he is still giving sanctions relief to Iran to the tune of billions of dollars, even after the October 7th atrocities. So while I don't doubt that this will be a tactical success tonight and in the days ahead, I have very serious reservations about whether this will be a strategic success. We'll know soon enough whether the attacks have stopped.
And there we have Senator Tom Cotton, in effect, echoing what our guest, Colonel Eric Buer, United States Marine Corps retired, is sharing with us as well. And, Colonel, we hear, I guess everybody's thinking the same thing, right? Is this going to work? We'll see if they keep attacking us. I'm going to pose the question a different way. I guess a hypothetical. Forget the Biden administration. Let's call it a Rich Valdez administration, and I call upon you to be my advisor. And I say, Colonel, I want you as an attack helicopter pilot to go in there, and I want you to kill every last IRGC commander that you can find at these installations. What would your strategic advice be to me?
Well, I tell you, we can't do it. I can't do it, and we probably don't want to do it. We don't want to create such a tremendous void and literally turn world opinion against us. What I would tell you to do is continue to put enormous pressure on the proxies, eliminate the proxies, isolate the Iranians, isolate the Iranian leadership from their own people, continue drastic economic sanctions, which have appeared to be very effective, though we very rarely ever report on it, and then use other tools we have in our kit. We have a tremendous amount of ability in the cyber projection of power. We can limit their ability to communicate internally. We can truly isolate the country. Now, we're all empathetic to people trying to live their lives there, but it's the Iranian leadership, as you would expect, they've done everywhere, who puts those populations at risk.
Is it
so my advice again?
Yeah. No, I got you. Is it my immaturity or hubris that thinks that because they killed 3 American soldiers, we should kill at least 3 of their guys?
Well, no, in that sense, we found this in a lot of places. If you begin targeting the most senior leadership, and what you have below them is oftentimes more radical leadership, more driven leadership. So if you end up targeting sometimes pragmatic, long-term thinkers, even though their thinking is oftentimes very demented in my mind, they understand things geopolitically. Now, if you target them, which we've done in the past, we've done it in many countries. There's certain people. We targeted Soleimani. Really great decision. Really put a massive hamstring on the Quds forces. Absolutely. And so those types of targeting, those are certainly on the table because those folks can be their fingerprints are all over these attacks. When we look at going up their food chain, I think at some point we have to give what I would call these isolated targetings, attacks, isolation of their proxies, isolation of the government, give that some time to take hold. And I think in the next couple of days, we're going to see, I suspect we're going to see ratcheting up. I think you'll see Tomahawks, cruise missiles coming out of submarines and aircraft and shipping. I think we'll see more strikes. I think the pressure will be ramped up. I may be wrong, but I think that's what we're going to see.
Right. Listen, I'm not looking to start a war. I'm just thinking, and again, you're the colonel here, not me. I feel like if you come after 3 of our guys, we have to send an incredibly strong message so that you don't do it again and that none of your friends think that they can do that as well.
So I think you're absolutely right in that sense. I mean, appeasement is seen as weakness in their world, in that neighborhood. We believe it's a sign of maturity to show restraint, and that we're somehow understanding of it, and we're going to, just say, don't do that again. They see that as weakness. We've only see that as emboldening the Iranians. And Tower 22 was on no one's radar until about a week ago, and then an entire new proxy executes these attacks, and it just shows how much we've emboldened the Iranians, and we have to stop that very clearly. Clear messages, again, proxies, isolation, and then let it sit. I think that's what the administration is going to do. I believe he's got a lot of smart advisors from the chairman down. They're going to give him good advice.
All right, folks, we're on with Colonel Eric Buer, and we're going to come right back. He is the author of Ghosts of Baghdad. We're going to hear a little bit about that when we come back, plus how you can follow and keep up to speed with Colonel Buer when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The United States has continued to work toward a goal that all of us should aspire to, a sustainable resolution of this conflict, so that Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side and enjoy equal measures of security, dignity, and freedom. Our engagement is the best opportunity to reunite all hostages with their families. Hostages, the Security Council has in previous resolutions urged Hamas and other groups to release.
Is Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield. She's the United States ambassador to the United Nations, saying that these negotiations continue. There's obviously been lots of talk about a 40-day pause on fighting in Gaza. It seems like Israel's at the table. I haven't heard much to the contrary of that. I'm not sure if this is something that they're actually going to be able to pull off. I know just, 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, they were talking about 4-hour ceasefire, and that was difficult to get consensus on. So I'm really, really skeptical about this. Colonel Buer, what say you in regards to this?
It's difficult. The Israelis were pushed to the brink. They see this as a fight for their existence. Hamas has said it's in their charter that one of their goals is the destruction of Israel and the destruction of Jews. It's a sickening level of hatred that is not going to go away with a ceasefire.
Right.
We all feel for the Palestinian people, absolutely. Hamas is their governance, and they had more than enough time. They've been given billions to build infrastructure, electricity, water, food stores, a route through the Rafah Gate to the south with some work with their neighbors in Egypt. They did none of that. Clearly, their intent was to use their people as a target, as a shield, to gain as much notoriety, to gain as much sympathy throughout the world. And now they're stuck in a conflict with a very determined foe. The Israelis understand their backs are against the wall, and they can't ever let this happen again. People really very quickly forget what happened on October 7th. It was a massacre. It's a tragedy. It'll never be forgotten in Israel. It's their 9/11. It's their December 7th. It's however you want to frame it. It's in their fiber for the rest of their existence.
Yeah, I think that's really well put, and I totally agree with that. And in the minute and a half we have remaining, I'd like you to let everybody know how they can get a copy of Ghosts of Baghdad and how they can follow you and the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Rich. You can get Ghosts of Baghdad anywhere you get your books. You can go to Barnes & Noble, certainly Amazon, my website, ericbuer.com. There you can certainly order the book. Happy to autograph it for you and personalize it. But also there you can see I write a syndicated column talking about the same things we're talking about tonight, and I continue to stay as engaged as I can. And so ericbuer.com is the best way to get a hold of me. And again, you can find Ghosts of Baghdad wherever you shop.
I'll be sure to check out the column because I'm always interested in what you have to say. Folks, Colonel Eric Buer, check out the book Ghosts of Baghdad. Colonel, thank you for being a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and for staying up late with us.
Thanks, Rich.
You
My
bet.
pleasure.
Of course. And folks, Open Phone America is coming up right now, right after this. Get your calls in, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3. We call it Open Phone America. It's Friday night. Give us a call. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Of course, you can always use the legacy line if you'd like. That's always open and available. And I love Open Phone America because you get to call in and kind of bring everything that you want to bring to the table and have that conversation. If you disagree with me, we get to your calls first. If you have never called the show before, we'll get to your calls first. And I'm also looking forward to speaking with so many of our regulars that call in. And I want to talk about a couple of things tonight. We're going to get to your calls momentarily. I see some calling already. And I just wanted to share a couple of stories because there's a few things that are interesting in the world. The actor Carl Weathers, Action Jackson, Apollo Creed, and so many other important roles. He's died. He was 76 years old, and he was in Predator. He was in a bunch of movies. They say, I think it's natural causes, died in his sleep. 76 years old. R.I.P. Carl Weathers, Action Jackson, Apollo Creed. Right? I always enjoyed watching Carl Weathers on the silver screen. He was a really, really good actor, and he was just seemed like a good guy, right? You know, back in the days, all those actors seemed cool. You know, it wasn't like today where you have these actors that are like villains off screen. Anyway, a federal judge has scrapped the March 4th date for the trial for Trump's case, the January 6th case. And they don't know when the new date is going to be. That sounds like a win for Trump as well. So what are they going to do? Make it October, right? The October surprise, dragging you into court. So I think that's probably a win for Trump, unless they bring it into the summer, which is probably better. The summer is probably better than the spring. And let's see here. Target Civil Rights Activity Book over incorrect identification. We'll get to that in a little bit. Supreme Court won't block West Point from considering race during admissions process. That's interesting. And this is the one I really wanted to get to. Listen to this. A pigeon has been held for 8 months in India on suspicion that it was a Chinese spy, and it's been released today. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, you're reading from The Onion, you're reading one of these funny stories. No, this is CBS News. This is a real story. A pigeon that was suspected of spying for China was released from captivity this week after Indian officials had detained it, according to PETA of India. The animal welfare organization intervened after hearing that the pigeon had been held at an animal hospital for 8 months. Oh my gosh, the uproar. India's police station in Mumbai found the pigeon in May of 2023, and according to PETA, the bird had writing on its wings, but the message was illegible. Authorities suspected it was being used for spying. The pigeon was sent to Bhai Sakarabai Dinshaw Hospital. Petite Hospital, excuse me, not Pete, Petite Hospital for animals to be examined medically and investigated. Months later, the animal hospital asked police if they could release the bird since the bird was healthy and was taking up cage space at the hospital. PETA of India intervened when officials failed to provide an appropriate response. The police department eventually told the hospital that they could, in fact, release the bird. In 2011, an Indian court ruled birds have a fundamental right to live free in the open sky, according to PETA. Caging the birds in the country is not allowed following this 2015 order. And a pigeon which was detained on suspicion of spying back in 2015 when a 14-year-old boy in Manwal, India, near the border with Pakistan, noticed that there was a stamped message on its feathers written in Urdu. That's the language spoken in Pakistan. And the bird also had the seal of the Pakistani district, and police conducted an X-ray on the bird. So apparently pigeons are being used for spying quite more often than we think or suspect or even know. And those in India are up on it, right? They are very, very keen to the spying that's going on. And I think that's pretty interesting, right? I mean, I think it's interesting. I don't know about you. I knew about courier pigeons. I didn't know about spy pigeons. Who knew about that? Anyway, we continue. There was another story I really wanted to get into here because, what's a week without some of the crazy that we hear, right? We didn't hear a lot from AOC, all out crazy, our least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens. But we did hear from Funny Willis. We did hear from, what's her name, Cori Bush. And, we don't have this audio. I wish we did. This is a good one. But we did hear, but we don't have the clip for you, from Ayanna Pressley. She's like the fourth member of the squad. She's the one that has the same haircut as me. And Ayanna Pressley took to the floor of the House to talk about how these big corporations that are shuttering their stores in places like New York City and San Francisco are leaving the community without sanitary napkins, without milk and infant formula, without all of the necessities that people go there to buy. And when they leave a community, they are harming the people in that community. And I laughed, honestly. I saw this video clip and I said, oh my goodness, Miss Pressley, are you aware that they're leaving because they're being robbed blind and they can't afford to stay there anymore? It seems like they gloss over everything. I mean, that's almost like saying, oh my gosh, when the police are locking up these people that are, beating up the police and terrorizing the locals, who's going to do the terrorizing? Who's going to do the kicking them while they're down? This is a travesty. Unbelievable, the things that people say. Anyway, also wanted to, I don't know if we have it, or if we don't, we'll get it for Monday. But there was a clip on social media from a program hosted by Shamika Michelle and Jason Whitlock. And they were talking about people, it was social media, right? There's like a trend on social media of heavy-set women. And I think they say something like, I'm a fat girl, so of course I stuff my face while I'm walking. Like, I'm a fat girl, so of course just these very, revelatory things about their eating habits and their lifestyle as an overweight person. And I thought it was just fascinating that this is a new thing and that people are trying to play that up, right? As if that's something of virtue. So we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Anyway, your calls and more are coming up straight ahead. You can get your calls in now, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. So I was just talking about this audio that I heard, and we're going to get to your calls. I see a few of you holding on. Thanks for your patience. Again, the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Going to get to you just in a moment. But I want you to hear this clip of audio of these women making videos on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, really highlighting their weight. Listen to this.
We're fat girls. We eat what we want when we want to.
We're fat girls. Of course we're going to ask for a table instead of a booth.
We're fat girls. Of course I ordered enough to have leftovers.
We're fat girls. Of course I'm learning to honor my hunger cues. We're fat girls. Of course we save some for later.
We're fat girls. Of course we take up space. Sorry, not sorry.
We're fat girls. Of course we're unlearning generational fat phobia.
So, yeah, that's the popular TikTok trend saying we're fat girls. And they go ahead and, go into this whole, this is what fat girls do type of thing. And, some people are taking exceptions to this, saying this is a big deal because we're, kind of glorifying this horrible lifestyle. And it opens the door to this conversation of, should we be doing that, right? Should we be glorifying something that's clearly unhealthy? And for years I've thought this because I was overweight for many years, right? And I wore it well. Nobody ever knew. My highest weight was 269 pounds. And the amount of people that always told, oh, you look great. Oh, you're so well dressed. I typically wore a suit and I just bought bigger and bigger suits. I think my collar size was an 18. 17 and a half if I lost a little bit of weight. My suit size was a 48 for a long time. Then I got up to a 50, so it'd be nice and loose. And, I put the 50 on. People were like, oh, you look like you lost weight. I literally had no neck. But, you do your beard well or your goatee, really sharp, trim, you dress sharp. And most people just really just don't notice. I guess they're enamored by my charm and stunned by my brilliance. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that for years, I was very comfortable being overweight because people were like, oh, you look good, you look healthy, you look fine. And obviously I wasn't healthy and it wasn't good. It was my doctor that scared the crap out of me, telling me that, you better lose some weight, otherwise you're going to be in bad shape. So, at first I lost 40 pounds and I lost like another 30. And, that last 30, I gained back 10 or 15 every now and again. And so I think I'm at a little above 200 right now, and I was at almost 270 or 269. So, down 69, 70 pounds for the most part. Sometimes it's more like 60, less like 70. But my point is I realized that I was eating poorly because I, had bad habits and was not eating the right food. But I also ate out of boredom. I also ate whenever things got a little too stressful. I did a lot of stress eating. I ate a lot on the go and the wrong things, obviously, not the healthiest options. And it made me realize that it had become a way of soothing things. It's like, some people are like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to go smoke weed or go drink. I didn't do that. I was like, I'm going to grab a cheeseburger. Let me order a pie of pizza. Yeah, that was just how I did things. And, that the dopamine rush that you get from eating that kind of stuff definitely puts a smile on your face, regulates your mood. You're back in. You're like, oh, I'm good. Everything's fine. and I laugh at it, but it's a sad thing. And I can't think of a world where people, I mean, it's one thing for people to not acknowledge that you're overweight. It's another thing for people to encourage you to embrace that, to say, oh, you know what, embrace your body positivity. It's okay. Be proud of who you are. Love every inch of yourself. I don't think you should. I really don't. I don't think you should love every inch of yourself when you're 270 pounds. Nobody should weigh 270 pounds unless you're like 6'5" and a wrestler. All right, that's the only way. I don't see how it works for anybody else. If you're not a extremely tall person that is, big boned or whatever, or a cop, a firefighter, or a wrestler, somebody's going to use that kind of that type of mass. I certainly don't need that, right? I mean, I did most of my radio career standing up. I just liked it better. I felt I could project better. But my current setup is more comfortable sitting down. And I sit down. So just imagine the hours of the day where I am working behind a microphone, I'm sitting down. I need to be heavier than I am? No, of course not. I don't need to be heavier. So it makes me wonder, should we be glorifying this type of situation where we tell women to go on TikTok or Instagram and say, I'm a fat girl. Of course I ordered enough food to take leftovers. I'm a fat girl. Of course I'm going to eat while I drive, or whatever else they were saying. I think this is clearly not a good look, right? We shouldn't. I don't know that we should tell people, hey, fat is bad, and you should feel bad about yourself. I'm not saying that, but I am saying I do think we should say fat is bad, and that people should learn that it's not okay. A little belly is not okay, right? We should learn that these things, this visceral fat, can harm you, and people should be aware of that. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in this. I was once doing a TV spot with I forget his name right now, but a guy who's part of a diabetes organization, and he was like their spokesman, and we were talking about that. And I said, oh, yeah, fat's terrible. And he said, yeah. He said, I once said fat is bad, and I got in a lot of trouble. I said, well, sometimes you got to tell the truth, right? You can't always succumb to the pressure of the people who don't like the truth. And he seemed a little scared to do that. But that's what's going on. Now, a lot of people are trying to lose weight with Ozempic and other of the what they're called GLP-1 inhibitors, and we've talked with a couple of doctors about this, and they work for a lot of people, and they work really, really well because they help regulate the part of your brain that controls how you produce insulin in your body and how you feel satisfied. So you're less hungry because you feel more satisfied, and you have a more stable blood sugar scenario going on, and voila, you become healthier and things are better. And some studies, or at least some people are recommending studies on how, because this covers the part of the brain that deals with satiety, that they are considering using these types of drugs for people that have gambling problems and the like, because this might help in that same scenario. So the question I'm asking is, should people be taking these drugs? Have you heard of adverse reactions to these drugs? I'm looking at an article in The Atlantic that came out today, and it says Ozempic makes you lose more than fat. And that makes sense. If you're on any type of, weight loss program, you typically will lose some muscle along with that. If you've ever seen anybody on like The Biggest Loser or any of those shows without Ozempic or any of those drugs, when they lose a large amount of weight very quickly, they become very flabby. They lose a lot of muscle. They lose a tremendous amount of weight. Their whole body changes, and oftentimes leaving a lot of excess skin. So it's a fascinating question. I think it's all good. Go for it. A little skin didn't kill nobody, but a lot of fat killed plenty of people. Anyway, I want to get to your calls. I know I've said that twice, and I didn't get to your calls yet, but we're going to get to your calls momentarily. I see calls from Florida and others that are coming in right now. So the number 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez, and looking forward to whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. And also, if you miss any of our interviews last week or this week, I know I got a couple of inbox messages on the social media, people requesting how they could listen to it. You should know this by now, but if you're new to the program, welcome. You can always check it out at the website, Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com is the website. Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com. Go there and you can you'll see all of the guest names. And if you don't know who these guests are, because you're like, oh, I don't know who Rich McCormick is. Well, he's a congressman from Georgia. All you got to do is hit the description button, and then voila, it tells you all about the whole show. You can read all about it before you listen. Listen for free. You can even subscribe to the podcast. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. I want to get to your calls. Let's go to Justin. He's in Moorhead, Minnesota. He's listening on WDAY. Justin, go right ahead. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, listen quite a bit. Usually on my way home from the gym. I love the show.
Oh, thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
Up here.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I was telling your call screener, it was funny when you were talking about the Ozempic, and I haven't been on it, but I just heard a podcast today from a very popular name that everybody knows. And they had a doctor on, and they were talking about this doctor. He was talking all about, the Ozempic and, side effects of it. And even just not even really a side effect, but another thing besides what you mentioned that it does is it causes paralyzation of your stomach or slows it down essentially. And the problem is it's literally in some cases or a lot of people, it is paralyzing it to a point where it's, problematic for them. And even when they get off of it, they still have the paralyzed effect of their stomach. So there's been a lot of problems. And then like a lot of other drugs you've heard about in life, as soon as you go off of it, if you lost, let's say 20, 30, 40 pounds, it comes right back. So it's not a kind of one and done or just, take it for a few months. But it was interesting on this podcast, they were talking about all of the dirtiness too of the, where it's from. I want to say it's out of the UK. And what I mean by dirtiness is they will not recommend it over there for all of these reasons, for weight loss, among other things. And it's just kind of interesting. So they're really taking advantage of the market here in the States for, of course, a lot of people suffering from obesity.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about at least there's 3 of these drugs that are approved for, and they're all approved for something other than weight loss. The weight loss is actually a side effect. There's Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Wegovy. And all 3 of these drugs are designed to regulate blood glucose. So for the type 2 diabetic to have a more stable blood sugar. And I think they all work with that regard. I think the only one of those 3 that's recently gotten a FDA approval just for weight loss was Wegovy. And that one was designed for extreme weight loss, like for people that are, I think, 300 pounds plus in order to lose weight, because it's such a serious side effect of these other 2 types of medicines that do the same thing, the Ozempic and the one I just mentioned, Mounjaro. So that part of it's interesting. And I know a lot of people are using it on the black market. They're selling it in gyms. They're getting it from compounding pharmacies in order to have the side effect, which is weight loss. And, along with that, some of the side effects that you've mentioned and others that, we've had some doctors on talking about that, like gastrointestinal issues and whatnot. But interesting, right? And I think it's if it's used as intended for the regulation of blood sugar levels to manage type 2 diabetes or prevent type 2 diabetes for somebody that's borderline, I think that's a great thing, especially if it brings down your weight and then kind of makes you, outside of that danger zone where your A1C level has become low enough where you're not in that target. But for those that are looking at it solely for weight loss, yeah, I don't think there's a silver bullet or magic type of thing. So I think people who are taking these drugs ideally are going to expect to take them for the long term if they're taking them for that main reason, which is deregulation of blood sugar. Because obviously if they don't, then they'd have to go to insulin or one of the other, types of blood glucose control types of pills that are out there. So interesting thoughts, though. I appreciate it, Justin, from Moorhead, Minnesota, listening on WDAY. Big shout out to you guys there. And let's continue. Let's see. Let's go to Tara. Tara's in Williford, Arkansas, listening on KSAR. Tara, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hi, it's my first time calling. I've been listening to you for a while every night on my way home from work.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
I was calling because, you're welcome. I am taking that Manjaro. I started it about 6-7 months ago for my A1C. I was at a 13. My A1C was at a 13. I've lost 54 pounds, and my A1C has went down to a 5.9.
Wow. And I was going to say, as you were saying 13, I know that 5.9, because I just went to the doctor, and they told me a good A1C has to be 5.9. Anything higher than 5.9, they consider you borderline diabetic. So right now, you're technically like not in the diabetic zone or right at the cusp of it, but way healthier than you were. And that's exactly the point. I think it's working in that regard. And the weight loss is just a side effect of the drug, which obviously helps to keep the A1C down and to keep you healthy. So congratulations to you. How do you feel?
I feel fantastic. And, the biggest thing is I went from like craving chocolate or something sweet. Now I prefer an apple or a pear. And it changes your mindset, I feel.
Sure.
So when all is said and done, I think I'm just going to be eating healthier all around. Yeah,
well, I don't doubt that at all. And I'm sure that, as long as you can stay on this, you're going to do really, really well. And if you do have to come off of it, hopefully you've created some new eating habits that you can take with you, even if you start to get those cravings back. Because that is part of the magic of these three, wonder drugs, is that it eliminates these cravings because it controls the brain center that controls cravings. And that's why they were saying, some people are saying they want to try it with people that gamble or use drugs, because it may also satiate those cravings as well. And because it literally turns off or turns on, depending how you look at it, but activates that receptor of the brain that makes you feel satisfied. So that's pretty cool. Well, congratulations to you, Tara. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Big shout out to Williford, Arkansas, KSAR, everybody listening there. And we're going to come right back to the rest of your calls. I see we've got our buddy Eduardo from Tampa, Florida. He's on the line. We're going to get to him and a couple of our regulars as well. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And we continue our discussion. I said I was leaving off with Eduardo. We continue with Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, WWTK. My brother, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Yeah, Rich, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to bring Germany in here into the conversation because we're talking about a country that used to be an economic powerhouse. and there's some similarities with problems that we're having here in the U.S. Turkey is trying to establish a political party in that country. They have a spike in asylum applications. They claim to need 400,000 workers every year. So this is why there's this big push with immigration. They already started doing that with the a couple of years ago when they had that big flood of people from the Middle East going in there. Right now you have a strike at the Berlin airport. There's workers on strike there complaining about inflation. Sounds similar.
Yep.
And they got a problem with housing. They're building these tiny homes. Like that's supposed to be like something cool. There's a shortage of housing. All this problem started with the COVID, and it's just and immigration. Those are the 1-2 punches, and that's what's happening here in the U.S. So if we don't get our act together this November, I'm afraid we're going to be heading towards Germany.
Listen, brother, I think you're right on track. I can tell you this. I remember having these discussions with some family members during the Obama years, because that was when it started, right? There were a lot of countries that were appealing to the UN, asking the UN to create these programs called refugee resettlement programs. And they were basically saying that these people were coming from war-torn countries with poor economic conditions, and that everybody had to take in a certain amount of refugees. And the UN was spearheading this. And you had a bunch of people coming in from a bunch of nations. But I remember in particular, you had a lot of North African Muslim men coming into Germany, as well as into France. And the only reason I remember that is because there was a lot of conflict. And at the time, there was a 60 Minutes television crew, and you may have seen this online, or you could find it on YouTube. The woman, the correspondent, is doing a stand-up, and she's saying, local residents are concerned about the influx of North African Muslim immigrants or asylum seekers or whatever they were calling them, saying that there's been a recent spike in crime as a result. Others saying that this is xenophobia and that this is racism and it's whatever. And as she's giving the report, 5 or 6 of these guys surround her, and they steal the camera that's doing the report. And it was they got it back. The cameraman starts struggling, as I remember it. And it's a whole thing. There's a fight that breaks out, but it's a thing. And then shortly after, we started hearing about these series of knife attacks that were occurring in London and in France. And as we saw more of Europe taking on more of these refugees. Now, again, this is not me saying that North African Muslim men are inherently criminals. Right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying that they were coming from areas where they were faced with certain realities, right? Some sort of survival. It was a different atmosphere, and I don't know who these people were that were coming into their country. As Trump aptly points out, oftentimes when you have this massive outward migration from a country, they don't send you their best, right? That's just the truth. They send you their worst because they want to get rid of some people, and they're like, hey, we're good now. It's kind of like when they tell homeless people, hey, we'll buy you a one-way ticket anywhere. They just don't want you back. So I think we're seeing a lot of that happened in France. It happened in UK, in England. It happened in Germany. And we're now witnessing that happen in New York City. And it's not just North Africans now. It's people from all over the country. I mean, you saw all of these Hispanic guys that, and I don't know where they were from, if they were from El Salvador or a mix of different places, but these guys, started kicking these cops while they were down, tried to bring them down, tried to free the guy that they were trying to take into custody. They looked like Antifa, but a little more violent. And then upon leaving the police, I don't know if you saw the video, but anybody who's listening, if you've seen this guy, very brazen, gives the finger, not one finger, he gives the finger on both hands, his left hand and his right hand, to all the cameras that are surrounding him when he leaves. It's a double FU from the illegal immigrant that was beating people up, beating up NYPD officers, the 7 of them. And none of them seem apologetic. It seems like they don't care. And the fact that they don't care, to me, is the most alarming part. That, most people, I mean, I remember just, I don't know, 5 months ago when criminals would put a hood over their head when they were doing the perp walk, and, you know, they were ashamed of themselves. They didn't want to be on TV. They didn't want to embarrass their families. It seems like that's a thing of the past now. People are proud to get arrested and then leave and get released without bail. It's a shame what we're seeing, but you're right. And as we see this expansion, you now have Erdogan, the president of Turkey, his political party is now expanding into EU elections in June. And that's, just imagine if we were to see something like that happen. Just imagine the cartel-backed political party in Mexico, let's just say, starts running in Los Angeles or Texas, in California or Texas, because, you know, there's that much influence pouring through the southern border, making its way into our country. That's literally how you take over a country, right? You take over politically, you take over the hearts and minds. You don't need an actual invasion of military force. What you need is people to just take over the ideas of the people and the leadership. And we're closer to that than many people think. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Sometimes I do lose heart a little bit, but I try to be optimistic. But there's days where I hear people say things like they're destroying this country. And in the back of my head, I think this country was destroyed a decade ago. I mean, there are certain things, certain lines that we've crossed that I don't know that we can come back from. And it doesn't mean that we're destroyed, but it definitely means we have destroyed aspects of our constitutional system, aspects of our tradition, and aspects of what we thought we were, of our culture. And that part, I guess, is inevitable. There's always going to be a change in the culture. Whether it's a good one or a bad one, I guess, depends on the people that are in charge of doing the changing. But I'll leave that there. Eduardo, thank you for your call, my brother, in Tampa, Florida, WWTK. I'm going to be in that area relatively soon, in the next, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. I'll announce it on the radio. Might do maybe an event close to the radio station. And we're going to take a pause right here, come back to the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And I want to encourage you to tune in on Monday. We've got a couple of changes that we're going to be adding, some new upgrades, I should say, upgrades to our format. We're going to be adding a couple of really cool segments. We've got some cool bumper music that Mr. Hinton in the control room has created, like a swamp segment that we're adding, which is going to be cool. We're also working on that Dear Richie segment. We're going to have that where I give you advice on things I don't know anything about, as if I were Dr. Fraser Crane himself. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a hoot. At least for me, it will be. And I want to get to your thoughts and calls before we wrap up for the week. Let's go to Paul in Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Paul, go right ahead.
Hey, Richie, I can't wait for that Dear Richie segment. I'm just waiting on that. But
Thank you, sir.
On illegal immigration, I call them illegal aliens. I don't think it's going to get worse before it gets any better. That's for sure. They're already here, so we got a problem there. Yeah, and I just wanted to. When you talk about weight, I come from the other end of the spectrum on that. I am skinny, and I've never been able to gain a pound in my life. I have been about 140 pounds since the time I was in high school. I was a little more in high school because I played football and worked out and so forth. But, what I've always found in my life as far as with the weight and everything is you got to stay active. You got to eat the right things. And you've had such good guests on this week talking about the brain and so forth. And I think that has a lot to do with it. If your brain's not active and you're sitting around munching on popcorn all day and watching the tube, well, you're going to gain weight, you know. And that's just the way I see it. And that's just my thought. I mean, I've never been able to gain a pound, Rich. I could eat a steak, a baked potato, then go eat a ice cream sundae, and I will not gain a pound.
Well,
and
Paul,
people are just like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to have to get connected with Cori Bush and use some of her private security, a.k.a. her husband, because most of the country is probably listening to you, and they're like, I hate this guy, Paul. I want to be like him when I grow up, eat whatever I want and not gain a pound. Godspeed to you, brother. Just make sure you don't eat a lot of cholesterol, because skinny guys can still get their arteries clogged. But I'm glad that you have weight management under control. I hope to have that under my hat one of these days. Paul, have a great weekend, my brother in America. Take care until the next time. Hasta la próxima. I am Rich Valdez, and I wish you a good night, and God bless you, America.